Hello, this is David Bulldog 27. Today we're going to talk about ANTIFA, which has been a movement of growing interest lately. ANTIFA formed in the 19 Hello, this is David Bulldog 27, and today I'm going to talk about ANTIFA, which has been a growing movement lately. Although it's a movement that has been around since the 1930s in Germany and in America. It's really become part of the public square lately, and I just want to talk about a little bit about it today because it how it affects political discourse in the United States and particularly in Europe. It has no formal organization. One of the reasons why we've seen this upkick is through social media. It's been an excellent platform in recruiting people to go to protests and act out the way they do. Antifa is basically anti-fascist. It's also anti-white supremacy. It tends to be very supportive of all immigrants. They have an approach of direct action. They take to the streets. They shut down protests against them. They shut down speakers who, such as in Berkeley earlier this year, whether it was Milo and others. They have no real appreciation for the First Amendment. That's pretty clear. They feel as though they're right and duty not to have certain speakers who they feel are oppressive to people, and so that they feel that they're doing is in the right. They don't believe that people who they perceive as being Nazi-like, with the rhetoric from the far right, that they should have a mouthpiece in public discourse. So they actually seek out, whenever they think that there's going to be white supremacists, to use force. And they generally use clubs, sticks, and Molotov cocktails to repel any kind of actions against them. And it's ironic that in many places, such as in Berkeley and a few others, that the police have actually kind of allowed their actions to precipitate. To a certain degree, we saw this in Charlottesville, Virginia, over the summer, where the police action or inaction kind of perpetuated the conflict between the original protesters who had grievances against taking the Robert E. Lee statue down, and this became the perfect storm, so to speak, for Antifa to take action. They knew this was going on. They brought their supporters in, and they caused the riots to occur. And unfortunately, there was a fatality in it by. It was really kind of a separate issue. The car running over protesters. That was not really the result of Antifa. This really was a right-wing guy who was doing that, and but what it does is it creates an atmosphere where basically the worst aspects of our emotional and political motivations come out, and we get violent and intolerant of other opinions. And certainly since the election of Trump, which a year ago, this has escalated both in Europe and the United States. Uh, some people probably don't know that they do have a charitable arm to them as well. They're instrumental in getting people to help hurricane victims, for example, during the recent storms in the United States this year. They're also very active helping immigrants, particularly illegal immigrants or undocumented immigrants or people who are trying to get established here. They have a humanitarian arm to them, and that's all in good. The question is whether they're a terrorist organization or not. They don't seem to have any problem with destroying property and arm fisting and a little bit of broken arm here and there. But they're not really a terrorist organization because their focus is not to use death as a form of persuasion. Of actually killing people, like we see with ISIS. ISIS is very clear that they have no problem with deaths. They seem to find that as an admirable goal of its soldiers to kill others. Antifa doesn't really have that. It's a troubling organization. It's a divisive organization. In some ways, it's having a more negative effect on American politics than terrorism actually does. And I think this is something that we need to pause and reflect on and ponder. Why is this happening? Is it just because of Trump? Is it because are their claims founded or not? I tend to believe that most of their claims are unfounded. I'm a child of the 70s. I was very familiar with what real racism looked like, and there was a lot of prejudice. There was a lot of ill will to minorities and others, and women as well. And what we have today is a very a country that a society that embraces the individual of all stripes, male, female, black, white, Latino, etc., to accomplish what they want in life. And the precedent in which Antifa is coming through as being so anti-right, and they really seem to be looking for trouble, and where there really isn't a lot there. But because they're a small voice, it's a very strong voice. It's very vocal. And what they're doing is through their propaganda are having people sympathize with their cause and believe that things are actually a lot worse than they really are. And if you really look at it, 1 year into the Trump presidency, have we really seen the lives of immigrants destroyed? Have we seen the kinds of rhetoric against black people and Latino people and Asian people, etc.? Do we really see that people have an animosity towards them? Is the administration itself actively pursuing goals that are against these communities, these different communities in our country? And this is what we have to ask. Certainly, we have a long way to go in perfecting the relationships between our different groups here in the United States. But to say that it's to the point where there needs to be a militant response to injustice in this country, it seems to be overbearing and perplexing the minds of people who are thinking about why they're doing this and what are the circumstances that they're rising to pursue their actions against people who have a different opinion and who peaceably protest. I remember when the Iraq War started, I was very dismayed that there was like 100 or so people in the Washington Mall who protested when we went to war in Iraq. To me, that was such a defining moment in history that just kind of was left to pass without any kind of dissent, any kind of reason to go into a war that against a country that never actually made any advance or conflict with us. And so we went into Iraq and on false notions and without any kind of examination of the facts. And yet now we have a lot of protests going on once again, but different, not having all the facts and the evidence to support what the injustice they believe is there. I'm just not convinced that America is evil. I believe it's a great country. I believe that through affirmative action laws, this country is extremely generous, and the kind of response we've seen from Antifa, I think, is grossly inappropriate. And I hope someday it ends. I hope people look at this organization not as an inspiring one, but one that we should find critical of and examine what the real motives are, and see if their motives reflect the reality of what is going on in this country, and match them up. Make your own decision. Don't be insisting on that people have to believe what Antifa says, because on the negative side, what they're doing is they're breaking up families, they're breaking up relationships, they're making it harder for people to trust one another, and it's left, right, and it's black, white, and it's there's nothing harmonious about their actions. So please, that's my feelings of Antifa. And if you have any comments, please be free to make them in the comment section. I'd like to hear from you. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.